Purple eye in the canyon.
That's also a thing today. We were talking about marketing. Maybe you have to find a condition that you have. That's a hip thing to do nowadays.
Okay.
You know, or like a
There's plenty of that at my house, buddy.
plenty of what?
Neurodivergence.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah, my wife is, we think she's like autistic. She's definitely ADHD.
Oh, okay.
Like hardcore, like at the highest level.
like you get
Seriously.
a ribbon.
Well, my oldest has some neurodivergence. And typically when they're really young, a lot of kids, the first diagnosis they get is ADHD, especially if they're autistic.
I feel like they've gotten better at.
It's much better than the last 20 years. Yeah.
Like it seems like there's older people. I think there's older people that might be that they just never got.
Brother. I think it's funny. Like, I see all these, every once in a while I like history stuff. And so they'll talk about like some inventor or writer or statesman or something. And they talk about how they've got all these crazy habits but they're like super productive or whatever.
Yeah, wicked creative.
And then you see a comments like, oh, sure, autism didn't start till the 90s or whatever they say. Well, and because they're talking about this guy, it's like that guy was clearly neurodivergent of some type.
I don't know a ton about it.
Okay.
But in a way, it seems like it's just finding a way to describe somebody who's just operating in like a different way.
Well, with neurodivergence specifically, so part of this is that there's quite a bit of that in my family, in both me and my wife's family. But my wife is a mental health professional. She's a children's therapist. She works at a children's hospital.
Oh my god!
In the emergency room in the psychology department.
Holy cow!
So she's seen some stuff, and we talk about it all the time because that's kind of her wheelhouse, you know. And now, like you said, it's more of a common topic now because people are actually talking about it. You know, there were years when people didn't talk about it.
Like or like if somebody had some sort of problem, you just write them off as being crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
They're dumb. They're
sure.
You know, the R word, whatever you want to say. Like, and those people got kind of sorted and segregated away pretty quick, and it wasn't part of normal. You know,
the R word.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. There's certain words that like they're offensive, but like with intent. Like if you were to call somebody
that, yeah.
But if you just said the word retard, like it's not like
it all comes with intent, like you said.
Well,
it depends. Like,
well, I mean,
there's terms that like we kind of grow out of, especially like I try to take my cues from, like the medical community or like medical professionals and stuff. And since I live with one, you know, she's corrected me on a lot of things. You know, I'm country as a collard green, so I came from just speaking plain, and that's not a common thing in polite society. Is just speaking plain.
No,
does that make sense?
Definitely.
And so, learning how to speak, not just plain, but what's the word? More.
Well, maybe like just be thoughtful.
But I would put it kind of like when I first started writing songs. Man, I can't remember who said it now, and I feel bad. I used to subscribe to all these like songwriter and guitar magazines when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I started working full time at 12. And so like I got over toys and stuff pretty quick, and music was always the thing. So by about 12 or 13 for Christmas, I just got like clothes, and I got like 6 or 7 magazine subscriptions back when they would mail them to your door, you know. And there was a songwriter years ago that I saw in some article. I think it was American Songwriter magazine, because I used to read that cover to cover every month. But some songwriter said it's about finding the best word every time, and like kind of mentally working through that in my own way, realizing throughout my life that finding the best words, it's kind of like a superpower, because a lot of interpersonal problems are really communication problems.
Definitely.
But if you can communicate like in a super profound, direct, like
Yeah.
hit the bullseye every time type of way. It's it cuts down on you being misunderstood, but it also allows whoever you're talking to hear you better.
Yeah.
And you get closer to the solution. You get closer to the reality every time.
So negative words though, like, because like the word retard would be used typically to like as like I guess a slur in ways to like say somebody's not smart.
It's derision, man. It's an assault. It's an insult. You
Correct.
know what I'm saying?
Correct. So,
I also have people in my extended family who, when I was young, we all, the phrase when I was young was they're mentally retarded, and that wasn't. That wasn't inappropriate. That wasn't
because
assault.
of intent.
It's intent.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You're using the word.
And now we don't even. And now even with the best of intentions, I don't think that phrase or word is used anymore. It's mentally delayed or
handicapped.
Handicapped is definitely, but handicapped is actually that's gone out of the way
like
too.
handicapable or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's the thing is like how far down it do you go? Because like even the word like idiot,
right?
Like the original use of that term was like
right.
idiocy or like moron, moronic or like they're like all I guess I don't know derivations of like
exactly. There's years ago that was meant to talk about a specific type of person.
Yeah. So I don't really have an issue with like society because the whole idea is like trying to be thoughtful and like not maybe sometimes you are purposely trying to hurt somebody's feelings, but
well, that happens quite a bit. Obviously, I think the main thing is like I said, it's about trying to find the best word.
Yeah, but I think that ebbs and flows a little bit.
It absolutely
with society.
does.
And like I'm cool. I'm okay with that.
Well, I'll tell you this: I use the word idiot every time I drive. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Every time I get on the highway, that word
and
is
there could
spilling off my lips.
But see, there could be a point when you're like 80. Maybe idiot is the new word that it's like you can't say idiot, dude.
It could come back
and
around.
then you're like the weird old guy that's like, what? We used to say it all the time.
We used to say it all the time. Well, there's lots of words your grandpa used to say we can't say anymore.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just changes with the times, and
where you're at geographically.
Definitely. And I think a big part of it is being aware of where you're at.
Not to bring it back to geology, but is that right? Or geography?
Geography.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I thought you were being funny, which was funny.
No, see, that's my go-to when people like it takes a second to like tap into like what I got going on. It's usually a bit of a delay.
Sure.
But when we talk about math or whatever, like my go-to joke is like, yeah, I've just like never been really great at geology, and like people will just sit there and like, what? And I usually just try to go right by it.
Yeah, that's my type of humor too, because that's the best word.
What is that? Is that dry?
I'll tell you what it is. It's using words as a toy, which is words have always been my favorite toy.
But then people get uncomfortable because they don't know if you know. Like, so they just don't know.
I get that all the time. My wife is like, they don't know you're joking.
So is that dryness?
They didn't catch the joke. You know what it is? It is, I think it's a difference between smart, intelligent humor.
Okay.
And, kind of slapstick humor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't love the slapstick stuff. There's elements of it that's funny.
Most intelligent people don't like.
Did you just?
I sure did, buddy. Most intelligent people don't
Hold
really
on.
get into it.
Let me have a moment.
Yeah, right. Let it soak in. Let it soak in. But that's people who look. I'll put it this way: you have to be smart enough to know that I made a dumb joke.
So that actually is really interesting about smart comedy. It starts to come off like it's just really, really, really dumb.
Right. And then if like once you engage your brain, you realize, wait, he's telling like multiple layered jokes here.
It's the way it got there is smart.
Yes. Yeah.
The final result's really stupid.
Yeah. There's a lot of comedians like that who they sell it so well that I don't think people even realize how smart of a joke was just told.
That's a great point because I don't like telegraphed smart humor.
No.
Like if you're going to give up there and give me a monologue to like try to show. So like Carlin always struck me like that. George Carlin.
Yeah.
It was real preachy.
It was.
Like pretentious.
Yeah.
And it was smart, but it's like.
It was smart.
You don't want to hear that guy at a party.
Right. Well, I think cynicism, especially in comedy, cynicism, it's a hard sell after a while because we're there to laugh at the absolute horrible and disgusting situations that we're in, because that's how we disarm them. We laugh at them. We find the humor, right? But I think same way with music. You know, we're there to, like, with musicians, I think our job is to find the beauty in the ugly, right?
Or in the mundane.
Or in the mundane. Exactly. We're trying to find the diamonds in the rough. We're trying to find those, you know, where's the tiny flake of gold in this muddy, nasty river, right? And I think people like comedians, writers, songwriters, musicians, all those people, that's really that's our power. That's our superpower.
Yeah.
Because it's that nasty, muddy river that other people walk by and go, I don't want anything.
Or like cinematographers and videographers. I say cinematographers because, like, I don't like the idea that just be like, I've got video cameras here.
I agree.
Good grief.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just trying to hold it together. You know, there's not like cinematography going on.
But at the same time, the other side of that is any Joe Blow with a camera might be able to get lucky and capture some beauty.
Yes, I know. Yeah. And then
and I think that has more to do with the idea that beauty exists and not so much the talent of other people.
That's a really interesting thought.
It's more about the beauty is everywhere you look for it.
Dude, so I have like almost zero reverence towards like songwriting in a way.
Okay.
Like, I hate the idea that, like, I'm a songwriter and then there's people that listen to me do my craft.
Okay.
I think everybody's got it in them to a degree. Maybe not everybody, but
Okay.
more people. There's a lot of people that don't know they do, that have it in them.
I would agree with that.
And
I think there's people who have words. I think there's people who have words that they don't use them as much as they could.
Yeah.
And I've talked to those people about that.
I agree. Yep.
So, you know, I would agree with that to an extent. There are people who absolutely have the spark, whatever it is, and I think you know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
they
just see things a little different. Yeah,
and I think musicians are some of the people that, like, the spark kind of gets worn on your sleeve most of the time, because our spark has this very obvious, very outward display. We play music, other people listen. It's a pretty simple transaction. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people have that spark, especially the people we operate with. And there are other people, I believe, that have that same spark that have not developed it. You know what I mean? I run into, like, fans and stuff at shows, and they're like, "Oh my God, I just can't believe you!" And I'm like, "I'm not special."
Yeah,
it probably makes people feel better if they believe that we're somehow special or different.
Here's another really uncomfortable take.
Let me finish this thought, because I think a lot of people who are listening are going to hate this. So let me get this out there. I think a lot of people who are fans of us, they would like to believe, it's comforting to believe there's something special about us, right?
Yeah.
The reality is the only thing that's special about us is we put in the time.
That's basically what I was going to say.
And that's very damning for a lot of people, because then they have to contend with the understanding that they're just not putting in the time. They're just not putting in the effort, right? I got a buddy. He is the head of the 3D printing lab at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Okay. He's one of the most decorated engineers at NASA, because he prints a part for almost every mission that NASA's done for the last decade and a half, 2 decades. He's made a part on it. So he's a part of dozens of missions. And he comes to my shows, and he and his wife are like, "Oh, it's amazing, you know?" But I nerd out about what he does. And I've tried to explain to him, you put in time, you put in the grind, you put in the effort, and you became this freaking amazing guy who does this amazing stuff. But there's not necessarily that much that's special about you. Now, he is definitely of above average intelligence, right? So maybe that's special. But at the same time, I know that there's people at NASA who aren't that much smarter than me, who probably have a job because they put in the time, they put in the effort, they did the work, you know?
Yeah, finding out somebody just put in more work than you to achieve the talent or whatever you want to call it is very
it's exposing.
it is exposing.
Exposes your lack of dedication to it.
I would agree.
You know?
And specifically with music, there's like a magic that we all like to believe in.
I absolutely believe that. Yeah.
And there's a part of me that knows that it does exist to a degree. But I guess it's nowadays I've done it. I mean, I'm sitting here like talking like I'm a veteran, but
You are. I mean,
no, but I don't want to come off like that. But to get any sort of sustained, any level of success comes with just such it's a war of attrition.
it is.
And like hard work and just really confronting some of your like innermost insecurities and being really honest with like, how do I get better? What am I bad at? How do I improve here? And then that's where you get years further down the road and people will be like, what a talent. Because they want to believe, they want to believe you were born.
Just this completely formed producer, writer, guitar player, all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not so. But like at the deepest core of this is where I do believe, I can't remember exactly what you had just said that was like so profound about it being like discovering. It's like you discover the creativity rather than it's not the actual person being creative.
It's honestly not about you and me. It's the fact that beauty exists outside of us.
Exists outside of us. And we like just kind of discover it in a certain way.
Yeah, I would say that. Or not even necessarily discover it because people have been discovering it for how old is Homo sapiens? 300,000 years, right?
We like communicate it in a unique way.
That's it.
Okay.
And I really like have you ever read the book Sapiens?
No, sir. I told you I don't know how to read.
Oh, I'll read it to you later.
It's the pretentious illiterate.
Yes, not the pretentious illiterate. No, it's a pretty good book. There's a lot of things I can't jive with because he's fairly biased to his own ideas and things, and so there's a few little ideas that get a little sideways because he's trying to push it into his little pigeonhole, but. One of the things he talks about is, shared myth. And like, that's one of the things that allowed civilization to happen. Like there was, at one point, there was a tribe of hominids that were on the side of some mountain, right? And they were all just kind of going through their daily lives, hunting, gathering, whatever they did. But somewhere along the way, they were able to share the myth. They're like, hey, this mountain, this is where the spirit of the elk inhabits. And so now we become the people of the elk, right? And now you've got this group of 100 or so, not necessarily unintelligent, but uncivilized people who are able to be civil to each other because of the shared myth, right? Because they all believe in the spirit of the elk or whatever. And that's like in modern times, we've just traded that for, oh, you root for the Cowboys? I root for the Cowboys. Or, oh, you like Jarrod Morris? I like Jarrod Morris.
Sure.
Or, oh, you watch this TV show? I watch that TV show. And so we have these shared myths that kind of help people kind of pair off into these little tribes or groups, And music is definitely one of those. And with musicians, specifically, we all kind of live under this shared myth, whether it's spoken or not. I think a lot of it is just what we were talking about before we sat down is like most people don't chase their subconscious, but I think a lot of songwriters, that's something that we have a hard time not doing because we're constantly chasing that down.
You ever find it annoys people?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I had someone tell me years ago. They basically just remarked like, well, the idea was like, you're pretty much always in the deep water, huh? Like, yeah, I can't really come up. You know what I mean? C.S. Lewis used to say, "You'll never convince someone who's seen the ocean that a mud puddle is fun." That's a some. That's
Say it again.
You'll never convince someone who's seen the ocean that a mud puddle is fun, and that's a summary of that. That's not a direct quote, but I think that's very real. You know,
Like, so it's all based on perspective.
I think it's based on perspective and experience and how far you've plumbed yourself. How deep have you gone on yourself?
Yeah.
What's the deepest, darkest bottom of the ocean of yourself that you've been to? And I think also people's personal experiences. You know, my dad was in Iraq when my 21-year-old was born, and he's still a great guy. He's definitely different coming back from a war zone. And that's a pretty stark, pretty profound example, I guess. But I think it puts the message across, because once you've seen that, you have a hard time going back and go, oh, well, let's see what Cardi B put on Twitter today. You know what I mean? You have a hard time once you've seen the ocean going backwards.
Yeah, or like your avoidance of yourself doesn't make me pretentious.
Absolutely. And your ability to only go shin deep, it's not going to stop me from having just the tip of my nose out of the water.
I see it a lot in songwriting. There's some dudes who are really, really great at just saying what's at the top of their mind, and just really letting that just come out. And it'll come out seemingly like real plain spoken and direct,
Sure.
which is cool and sometimes very necessary. Oftentimes those people will, in my personal experience, will sometimes maybe give, if they perceive that you're overthinking something, they'll kind of use it as a dig. And like, man, you just got to let it roll. Like, it's just not that complicated. You just got to say what you mean and mean what you say, and like, don't overthink it. And it's like, well, there's kind of two sides to this, because they'll also just kind of jibber jab a bunch of stuff off, and it could be really profound,
right?
If you were to like unpack it, and you might even end up, if you were to unpack it, you might even say it the exact same way that they said it,
right?
It's just, you know why,
yeah.
But like, they could say something profound, and just because you don't know, because you'll ask them like, what does that mean? What'd you just say? And they're like, I don't know, I just said it.
Yeah.
And it's like, me unpacking that and understanding why you said it doesn't make it more meaningful or less meaningful. It just like helps me understand it. But so some of those people that I've been around, it's like they're almost scared to unpack it in a way. It's like it'll take out some of the gusto if they understand what they actually said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, because in my experience, unpacking it sometimes leads to like another song.
Right.
You know,
for me, and I can't speak for everybody that you're talking about. I know some of those people, that just kind of let it roll or whatever. Most of the people that are my peers and stuff, I know that they stress over every single word. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
well, yeah. So sometimes you can go too far that way.
I don't know that you are going too far.
Okay. Sometimes.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think, honestly, I don't know that you can go too far with that. When I was a kid and I listened to a lot of music and was trying to find inspiration to, play my own music or whatever, the things that inspired me the most were songs. I tell people this all the time. It's like, I've always been a fan of music that helps. You're having a horrible day. You're in the car on the way home. It's like, man, there's a song that I want to hear, because inside that song are the feelings that I'm feeling. And that song is going to help me process my feelings, get my feelings out, however, right? So like, you're talking about people who don't necessarily go deep. Like, I think about times when I've been driving along in my car and I have to pull over the side of the road because somebody's line in a song wrecked shop, and I got to pull over and get a hold of myself for a second. I'm not saying I'm like bawling or whatever, but I'm like, okay, they're right. That makes sense, you know? And so now when I'm writing songs, that's what I'm looking for. I am trying to put a knife in the heart every single song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even the fun ones. I want there to be something in there that you get nicked while you're having a good time and go, ooh, got me. You know what I mean? That's what I'm looking for. So
Like in a emotionally provoking way.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes and no. I mean, I want you to, how do I say this? I want you to step out of reality for just a second. The physical reality. I want you to step out of it for just a second. And even if the whole process takes 2 seconds, I want to pull you from your boat of your comfort zone, drag you to the very bottom, rub your nose in the sand at the bottom of the ocean, then take you back in about 2 seconds. That's what I want to do. Because that's what I look for in music. I want music that does that to me, right?
Yeah.
Walt Wilkins songs, just about every song has a line that slaps me across the face real quick.
Yeah.
You know, wakes me up like, oh shit, he's right. Yeah, I got it. That's right. What am I doing? You know what I mean? It kind of pops you back into reality of like, hey, life is hard. Life is crazy. It's chaotic, but it's beautiful.
So I probably why I haven't gone far enough down the rabbit hole on like maybe some like Guy Clark, Townes Van Zandt stuff like that world, is because the music doesn't move me quite enough.
Okay.
The actual musical component and the melodic components.
Sure.
Not that stuff has to be like overly dramatic or anything, but and there's parts of it at times that the simplicity I can dig.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's like you can have the most epic lyrics because ultimately I'm listening to music. That's why I'm listening to. I'm not listening to spoken word poetry. That has a place, and I like some of that stuff because like I like the cowboy poetry thing too. But it's poetry. I'm not listening to it for a musical component.
Yeah.
And so there's some stuff that feels a little distant for me because I just can't like. It's like the lyrics can just be super epic, but if the music isn't maybe pulling me in that same area, to counter that as well is like there's songs that I can feel more emotions than they're actually even saying just because of the music.
Yes.
And the lyrics can actually be relatively shallow.
Sure.
But they just seem to like be so profound just because the music is so great.
I think.
And maybe if the lyrics were over the top, it might not.
It might steal from the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Well, I think it's a balance, man. You know, our job is to show, like I said, those tiny little beautiful things in the middle of all the ugly. And, you know, Picasso and Da Vinci, they're both masters, but they got different strokes.
Definitely.
And so I think there are people who their specialty, their strength is lyrics. There's people whose specialty and strength is instrumentation, you know, production, genre, however you want to say it. And to me, I don't really, I don't really care as long as there's some type of, there's got to be an emotional investment. I've run into music, obviously, I think we all have, where it's like, man, I don't feel anything in this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like I see them up there and they're working hard and they're jumping around, screaming their head off, and they're playing the dog out of that guitar.
Still don't feel anything.
I'm not feeling much.
Yeah.
Like the emotional content got left out. And I think that can come through words. I think that can come through production. I think it can come through a steel solo. But to me, as long as I think I can feel it or recognize it, you know, and part of that has to do with me too, because I'm also just an ear. My ear might be plugged that day or whatever, you know. I'm still just a listener.
Gosh, because that happens with my own music. I'll listen to it. the day after. I was so jazzed on it, and I'm like, this
What
is
is
just
this?
not.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you know what's funny about that too is that you can still be wrong. You can be wrong
Even
about your
the
own
second
thing.
day, not
Yes.
liking it, I
Yeah.
could be wrong that day.
Yep.
Could have
You
been
be
right
wrong
the
the
first
second
day,
day.
wrong the second day.
Exactly.
Vice versa.
You know, there's songs. There's a song Pieces that I put on my first record, and I started writing that song even before I met my wife, and it took me years to kind of just piece it all together. But when I finished it and I was making my first record with Walt Wilkins, he said, "No, man, this is one of the songs we need to put on there. There's people who will need this song," and I didn't really agree with him at all. It was one of those songs that had been around so long for me that it wasn't cool or new anymore. I'd beat my head against the wall so long on it. It was like, dude, I'm lucky I got this thing finished, you know, and I'm still not even sure it's finished, you know. But Walt said, no, this song has legs and there's people who can use this song. So let's put it on that first EP. And we did. And almost every show I play, someone asked for that song. Obviously, I was wrong. Like, there's people who've told me, like, I had a drummer a long time ago when I first made that record, and his dad came to every show we played, and when we play that song, he'd hear the first 2 bars of the intro and stand up and walk out the bar every time. And I noticed it, and I was gonna ask the drummer about it one time. And then after a show one time, we were finally driving home or whatever, and he said, man, he just basically told me my dad loves that song, but he hates that you play it live. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, because he can't take it. It hits something. It's a nick somewhere, and it nicks him every time. It's like, oh, okay.
Do you have a specific one that does that to you, like one of your own songs?
That nicks me?
Do you potentially have one that you have a hard time like getting through it live?
Ooh, goodness. There's a song called Love Rescued Me that I wrote. I put it on my TikTok a week ago or so, but the stories that people have told me around that song, it's really heavy. Like when I'm standing up there on stage and I'm playing that song, there's this kind of feeling maybe like I've stopped being entertainment for a moment. This is more about there's somebody in this room that needs this song, you know? And even on nights when it feels like not a lot of people are listening, I'll play that song and someone will come to the merch table or whatever afterward and like, I'm so glad you played that. That was the only song I wanted to hear tonight. And let me tell you my super harrowing story about how that song got me and my family through. And they just tell me like, I don't even know, like, I don't tell most of these stories in public because it almost feels like it's inappropriate. Because some of the stuff,
stories that they've told you?
Yeah, because some of the stuff is it's fucking intense.
Really?
Yeah. It's intense. Like and I have several songs that people say those things about. There's a song I have called Love Me Like You're Losing Me. I've had a lot of couples come up and tell me like, hey man, you know, we were about done and my wife sent me this song and we worked it out. And that was 2 years ago. It's like, you know, when you're on the stage and a large part of what you're doing is just trying to sell t-shirts. And then people are like, you're responsible for my family staying together and we had this kid after we got back together. So things like that, you know? And so now that's what I mean. That's why it's hard for me to play in mud puddles because I understand that I have been given songs. I don't really take ownership of the songwriting. I mean, yeah, they're my songs and, you know, their mind to make money off of. There's that part of it, but there's also the part of I also know who I am as a person, and a lot of the songs that I've been given, however you want to say it, I was given them by God, by the universe, by my experience, whatever you want to say. Whatever place those songs come from, I just get to be the steward of them. And that's one of the big reasons I feel that way, is because of the stories people tell me.
It seems like too, if you get to such a level of popularity, that attachment, I mean, I'm fearful saying this because I don't know, but it seems like that like attachment and connection that you're having to like somebody telling you that story or hearing that story about your music, seems like there's a level of popularity that your reaction might get lost. Like the way you feel about that.
Oh yeah.
At a level of popularity, it seems like in my observation, some people kind of lose that. And I hope I have a hope that that's not inevitable, but I wonder if it gets to just I guess my point is it's such a beautiful thing. I think it's something money can't buy. Like you're always
Absolutely
wanting
can't.
like some more success and to be bigger and stuff. And I think that comes at a cost. And I think one of those costs is like that you're getting right there.
I think it can be. I don't know if it's completely mutually exclusive, but I will say that hearing those stories, the most profound and hardcore ones, it's ruined me in some ways for the business, because my idea of success now is not my idea of success is probably very different than most people's.
Right, it's probably a little bit more like metaphysical now.
It's absolutely metaphysical.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, because to me, what will, for my intentions, for what I want, what success is to me is songs that hit people, songs that nick people. And knowing that a lot of times that's not what sells the big rooms. There's it's that whole idea between McDonald's and the little family-owned steakhouse.
Yeah.
McDonald's sells a lot of burgers. They sell a lot. That's like I don't eat McDonald's, and I'm sorry if someone out there loves it, but like that's kind of lowest common denominator food, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of people, not as many people who say to themselves, no, I need a great aged prime grade A Angus sirloin. I want something very specific that is valuable. It's not easily come by, right? There's a lot, you have to put a lot more effort into it beforehand so you get this specific thing at the end. And I mean, if I had to save my life, I probably could sit down and write a party album and we could sell a lot of Bud Light. But that's just not where my brain goes anymore. You have these people tell me these stories. Like there was one lady, she said her dad was dying of cancer and he was in hospice and he was basically catatonic but awake. And they played Love Rescued Me while he was on his deathbed. And they got him back for like 10 minutes. And while the song played, he started talking to him.
Oh my gosh.
And then that was the last day they had him.
Yeah.
And he was gone that night. And how that song was like instrumental in like giving closure to the family, how that song helped them heal a lot of stuff. A lot of family history got covered in this very short time. And those people honestly believe that song was what broke the veil. I can't say that. Maybe I was just lucky, If, maybe if the shuffle had been a different way, it would have been Running Down a Dream by Tom Petty that came on when that happened,
Yeah, well, it's nice to hear the way that you describe it too, because there's not like there's not like a. Some people can start to take themselves maybe too serious, like a lot of artists
Yeah.
can, where it's like,
That's why I try not to take ownership of these things.
yeah, I feel you on that.
I'm just a steward,
Yeah, well, yeah, steward. So you're deeply respectful of like what it could do,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also not like walking around poking out your chest saying like everything I touch,
Well, that's
everything I
definitely not
write
true.
down is going to change lives.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah,
I want to
it's
change
the
lives.
goal.
That's the
Yeah,
goal.
it's the
That's the
goal.
mission
It's
statement.
the goal.
From the very beginning is I want to change some people's lives. I want to mess them up in the best way possible.
Yeah, I wonder
But
if
knowing also that like I also know what happens in here.
yeah.
And knowing that if I get it, it probably didn't come from me. I just was the conduit,
So is that a specific spiritual thing that you're referencing, or is it
I think maybe, yeah. Yeah.
is it a God figure? Is it a energy? Is it a what is it?
Isn't that the question though? Isn't that the question?
Well,
I think
I mean, for you
for me personally,
yeah. Like, what do
I
you
think there's only one source of creativity. Okay. And that's God. If you don't want to believe in God, the laws of nature are pretty self-evident. And if you want to get really theological, the laws of nature can't exist outside of God. So they're the same thing.
And so you're saying God like a
I'm talking about like,
outs like creator outside of space, time,
yes.
matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beyond
Creator,
space and
God.
time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I think one of the most godly things you can do is create, make things, make beautiful things that are useful, right? That are for the good of your brothers and sisters out here. So I definitely come at it from that aspect that I'm just look. Adam didn't take credit for the garden, but he took his job as the protector seriously, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But also, Adam got kicked out. That means he's not the gardener. He is a gardener, right?
Well, yeah.
And
That's why Satan got kicked out.
That's how I feel. Like I'm not the songwriter. I am a songwriter.
Okay.
And to me, that drives me in several ways. Like if I've had it happen where there's a song I had an idea for, and I thought, oh, that's a cool song. Maybe I'll write that. Or even there's times when I've had an idea for a song and I thought, I don't know. And then months later, year later, someone else has written that song. And I'll hear their song and thought,
like, yeah.
Crap. I got the memo and I passed it on.
Whoa.
And that's how I feel. And it's not necessarily like I don't really think it's all about me. I think it's more about the most special thing about me is that my ears are open. That's it. Is that I listen and I look constantly. That's the only thing that's special about me.
Are you a youngest child?
No, I'm middle.
You are? How many siblings you got?
I got an older brother and a younger brother.
I've got a running working theory.
Oh, do you?
On creativity. I mean, it's nothing like overly profound. It's just
I
the
wanna hear it.
idea
It's
that
great.
like typically most of the creatives I meet, or I say creatives, like the ones that I like, the good ones, are typically youngest children.
Youngest children. Okay.
And my theory is that they spent just a ton of time observing.
True.
Go sit in the corner, go entertain yourself, shut up and listen.
Yeah.
So they did a lot of observing.
Yes.
Oddly enough, a lot of them end up being kind of loud, gregarious personalities.
I was going to say, all the youngest children creatives I know, they have a knack for getting attention because they had to learn it when they were kids.
Oh, that too.
They had to learn, hey, I'm over here.
Okay.
Right. They had a knack, but they also were comfortable being the center of the attention. They're used to the whole family
Yeah.
all having their eyes and ears trained to this.
Do
The
they
little one.
typically, like in your experience, do they have to be? Do they have the A-type thing where it's like, I've got to be the center of attention?
I think a lot of them do.
Okay.
But again, I think that comes down to maybe psychology and like, listen, I had this conversation that I was telling you, I had a long conversation with a buddy of mine who's long time musician, known him for years and years. And we were just talking about the process. And one thing we kept talking about is there's a lot of reasons people do this. There's a lot of reasons people do this. And if I'm going to be cynical and straight on, there's people who do this because they want attention. There's people who do this because they think it's a quick buck.
Yeah, it's showbiz.
There's people who do this because there's something inside of them that needs a box checked or a hole filled that says, okay, now that I've made this, now I feel like I'm cool or useful or whatever, any of those things. So that's a big thing for me. Is one thing I'm always looking at whenever I see any musician is I'm kind of trying to see past the eyeballs. I'm like, why are you doing this? What's in there? What's the reason you're doing this? And most of the people that I connect with, that I like, you can see it. It's like there's people, I'm doing this because music won't leave me alone, right?
Yeah, Adam and I were talking about that exact thing.
That's the people I grab onto.
Yeah, it's like Jamie Lynn Wilson. Prison.
Jamie Lynn Wilson said something years ago, and I've carried it with me ever since. She said, "There are those who can, and there are those who must." Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I know. I think it's part of how I was raised with my family.
Okay.
That it's almost like I'm so scared about taking anything I do too serious because there's going to be somebody to try to knock you off your like high horse.
That definitely sounds like a little brother.
I'm so worried about, like I had 2 older sisters, so they were super cool.
Okay.
But like just cousins and relatives and stuff.
Sure.
It's like my family's like, you got to learn how to freaking take some heat.
Right.
Talk some trash.
Sure.
Give it. And I'm talking like, it's not even talking trash. It's not in playful fun. Like it's being mean.
Sure.
And you got to learn how to freaking water off a duck's back and just shoot it right back. But like if there's even a whiff of like, oh, feel pretty good about that, huh? Like we're going to decimate you.
Get a little big for your britches.
Yeah. And so I think I have like this almost just kind of like white knuckle whenever somebody's like, it's not something I can do. It's something I must do. I'm like, no. Somebody's about to destroy me.
But yeah, right. Yeah. But it's funny because coming from I'm a middle child, and I don't know if you know all the stereotypes about the middle child, the middle child is typically treated the worst. They get the least attention.
Well, that's part of the bit though, is that they think they're treated the worst.
Well, see, that's the bit of a young kid, is because a young kid thinks that the middle kid just thinks that, right? It's like, I started working full time when I was 12. I bought my own truck, Then
the youngest one didn't have to do any of that.
Oh, It's funny because I started working full time at 12, and I asked my folks when does my little brother have to get a job, And he's gonna hear this. He's gonna be so mad. He's like, "That's not what happened." But I remember having a conversation with my mom. Like, well, when does he have to start working all the time? My mom was like, "He's only 15. It's a little young for that." And I'm thinking,
what did you?
I've been working full time for 3 years.
Yeah.
So
it was his younger brother, right?
Yeah, I have a younger and an older brother.
I think it does change a little bit too. I had 2 older sisters, so it's like the standards were so different because we were.
Yeah, that's a big difference too.
Genders.
Yeah,
like it was.
That's a big difference.
With junior and senior in high school, I just came and went as I pleased. I'd leave in the middle of the night, kind of thing. And sure, it was more lax, purely just because my parents are older and they're tired, and I'm the last one to graduate. So it's like, to a degree, they're like definitely freaking wore out. Mm-hmm. And then there's another side. He's like, Rachel, like you were a girl. Like you're out in the middle of the night. I don't know where you're at. I'm sorry. It's different.
It's different.
It's freaking different. Like I got to worry about what Jarrod's doing. Like not as much like what's being done to him kind of, what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's just like a reality of life. Unfortunately.
It is. Yeah.
So some of that stuff is like, and dude, my dad was funny. He would like, when we were young, I remember he would purposely buy one of the kids like more presents for Christmas, and then like wait for us to be snotty little kids and be like, why'd they get more? You know, and he'd be like, life's not fair. World's mean. Like, get over it.
Yeah.
Stuff's gonna happen. That's just not like how you think it should happen.
Right.
Get
Yeah.
over it.
Bro, that sounds like my dad was in the Army for 40 years. He worked for the co-op. He was in the reserves for the last 20 something of his Army career. And so he worked for the co-op. And man, that's exactly how my childhood was. It was
Almost
just,
like, can you love, like with kids? I don't have any children. So how many kids you got?
I got 3.
So
Yeah.
can you potentially, yeah, I feel like you could love them all the same while treating them differently.
You have to treat them different
Okay.
because they're different people. It'd be
Yeah.
inappropriate for you to treat them
Yeah.
all exactly the same.
That's where I think it gets weird.
Yeah.
Treat them all the exact same. Why?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I had 2 brothers, so it was just 3 boys, 3 knucklehead boys in that house. So there was a lot of things we got treated exactly the same on. But then there was also things that were, more focused to us. I guess if that makes sense. Looking back, I don't really. There were definitely things that shook out in a much different way because there were different expectations of all of us. But we're also very different people, so we needed to be handled different. You know, I'll say this: if my other brothers had been treated like me, my big brother would have just left, and my little brother probably would have had a breakdown. But that was kind of the way that I needed to be handled in my folks' eyes, you know. Like I started working at a feedlot at 12 because we had a little farm in Buffalo, Oklahoma, and we sold out the very early spring of 93. And then by the summer, my dad had taken another job with Farmland Incorporated. So we moved to this town called Exeter, Nebraska, which is a little bit town, which Buffalo is a small town. I mean, it's like 1,000 people. I think there's less than 3,000 people in the county, Harper County. It's the county that's on the very end of the Panhandle. There's nothing out there. And then we moved to this even smaller town, you know, and all new friends, all new school, all that stuff. And I had a really bad attitude about it. I was pretty shitty, to be honest with you. And not very long into that, my dad basically said, hey, you're going to start work this Saturday. And I got dropped off at this feedlot at like 6:30 in the morning and started working at a feedlot. And, you know, my big brother and my little brother both worked there off and on, but I worked there the entire time we lived in Nebraska, which was 3.5 years. That was probably the correct thing for me, because if not, I would have just sat around and felt sorry for myself. At least at this point, I was up, moving around, doing something, making a little money, learning some things, you know.
What were you doing at the feedlot?
I mean, it was just me and another guy.
Yeah.
It's like a little 800 custom feeder. So
okay.
A lot of what I did was drive post holes.
Yeah.
A lot of that. He had when I was there, he built a new pen, and he had a little, I want to say it was like a 6-inch auger that he put on the PTO. He collected these old kind of vintage tractors that he'd got from his dad and like his grandpa and stuff like that. And so he kept them around, and we kept them running, and we painted them once in the time when I was there. Actually, took all the tins off and did stuff like, you know, sanding them down, Bondo, and put new primer and paint on them, stuff like that. So we had these old tractors, and but the whole operation was pretty hands-on, very manual, you know. But he had this old 6-inch auger, and this pin was going to be on the outside, and so he said we got to put a big fence out there so everything doesn't get out. And I was like, that makes sense. And I showed up the next day, and there was this big semi flatbed dropping off railroad ties. And the evening before, he'd gone through with this little bitty auger and dropped the centers, right? And then I went behind with a sharpshooter and made the holes big enough to fit
Yeah.
fit a railroad tie.
Yeah.
And then I was wrestling these railroad ties and dropping them in, and
Sucks.
he didn't want to pay for cement, so I was out there with a big pry bar that had a flat tamp in it on it, you know. So drop them in, throw in a couple inches, tamp it down, throw in a few more inches of dirt, tamp it down, you know, and you just pack that. In Nebraska, they've got this. It's like this black clay. It's like, I mean, it's hard clay, and it is black
Black mud.
mud. Yeah.
So yeah, they have some in Decatur.
Yeah.
And then like northeast of Decatur, it's all black mud too.
Okay. Yeah.
Crum, like that area.
Yeah.
If you get east of I-35, like it's really nice sandy loam out there by Ray Roberts, and if you go west of there, it's all black mud.
Yeah.
So like being a horseshoer, like black mud is the worst.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
it
I bet.
sets up in their feet like
Yeah.
freaking concrete.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny where we were, you know, I graduated high school from Sunray, Texas, which is up north of Amarillo. And kind of out there, it's once you get on top of the Cap Rock, you know, north of, gosh, I'd say it's about, man, where's the Cap Rock hit? It's somewhere between Vernon and Childress, I guess. And once you get on top of the Cap Rock,
I'm
it's
sure
all,
there's going to be somebody that's like,
it's all that sandy loam.
once
Yeah.
again, it always
Hey,
goes
we're
back to geography.
We're back to geography.
Well, I'll tell you where the
I'll
Cap
tell you
Rock
this.
really.
That's right.
My granddaddy, he freaking chiseled the Cap Rock.
That's
with
right. He was out there when they put it down.
the tip of his pecker. He chiseled the Cap Rock
That's right.
where the water flows like wine.
That's right. Well, no water flows out there on the Cap Rock. That's the problem. No, but you know, feedlot stuff was just feedlot work. You know, it was a little bitty operation. So it was my big brother worked on a feedlot when we lived in Buffalo, and that was a big feedlot. You know, 15,000 head or something.
Yeah, so you're like,
And so, no, he was on a horse all the time, you know, like riding pins and stuff like that. And so when my dad said you're gonna go work at a feedlot, I was like, that's fine.
Heck yeah.
Like I grew up on a horse, you know. And I was like, that's cool. I was actually excited because we had just sold our farm and our horses and all our animals and stuff. So I was like, oh, cool. We get out there. There's not so much as a 4-wheeler out there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you need to get to that pin?
Just
Start to walking. You know, you got boots on, don't you? And so just a whole lot of, you know, running. It's a feedlot, so you run feed and you doctor every once in a while, and
It's
a whole lot of shovel operation.
It's
you know?
so funny to meet specifically music artists that like come from I don't really even say country background. Like most everybody I ever meet comes from some sort of rural type background, but like more specifically like livestock and maybe like a cowboy
Ag, like an actual ag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a cowboy background. It's just so funny. Like typically those music artists that I meet are so kind of weary about, I guess they don't make like a conscious effort to not let anybody know that they come from that. But it's almost like they just kind of like, I don't know, you find out in a funny way. They're not like out there with their freaking starched up.
Yeah. They don't wear their chaps to Walmart.
Yeah. And they're not out there with like, I'm the most cowboy person around.
Yeah, that song that's big right now, the Me More Cowboy Than You song.
Yeah. Very funny. But I guess it's funny. It's like I always get to find out.
Yeah.
And then their music doesn't ever really talk about it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily sound like it. But that's what I always like preach that to people all the time is like most of the music that you would hear somebody listening to going down the rodeo trail or like out riding pins or in the Brandon pen. Like most of the stuff they're listening to, like they're not listening to Amarillo by Morning.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
As much as I love that stuff, that's great. And maybe at a certain time in their life, they listen to that type of stuff. But like they have a pretty eclectic taste in my experience.
Yeah.
Like they're listening to some blues and some rock. And
right. Well, it's funny because my family still is in Oklahoma. A lot of my extended family is still farming wheat out in the panhandle in the literal no man's land.
Yeah.
And they're not listening to country radio, you know? they're all listening to like my cousin Danny, you know, he loves classic rock and stuff like that. And but they got enough cattle and wheat that they could very easily be called cowboys, you know.
Yeah,
but they're,
for sure.
like you said, they're not out there. They don't put in their Baxter Black tape every time they get in the truck in the morning. You know what I mean?
No, in a funny way, they're like, I don't want to hear that stuff. I have to live it. I don't want
it gets old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think part of it is that I think the people who've come from an ag background, it's like, man, I ain't got nothing to prove to you.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had people tell me I've had a lot of people assume that I was the furthest thing from country because I show up with that red electric guitar and, you know, and I'm playing this kind of soul infused stuff, and they think I'm from Denton or something, you know, and I have to explain to them.
Yeah, especially as it's becoming more popular, the cowboy thing.
Yeah.
Just like right now, it's just kind of at the height of popularity. It's like, be careful it's usually the ones that you might least expect.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, that's classic, like don't judge a book by its cover type stuff.
Absolutely.
But then, I mean, there's some some of the most cowboy people I've ever been around. I mean, I'm talking, they're sleeping, their bed sheets are starched.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there are some people like that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they are.
Those people still exist too.
100%,
Absolutely.
dude. So I guess the whole point is like, be yourself. Just be careful about how you might judge somebody, because there's probably some stuff in the backstory that like, you didn't actually know was.
Well, I think it kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier, is kind of it's the packaging. You know what I mean? How people package themselves and maybe their music project. And so a lot of it is marketing or narrative, meme, however you want to say it. But just, I think there's so many people, they put this, put a label on. They put a label on, and it's very helpful. Like a lot of people who are trying to break out, it's very helpful to have a label.
Yeah, it's easy to like digest.
Yeah.
Just really quick.
Man, when I was just getting started, people would say, well, what's the music? What do you play? What's it sound like? You know, and I've always had a hard time. I'm like, man, I grew up playing country and Hendrix and listening to Motown. And so I write songs that are
this country Hendrix Motown thing?
Country Hendrix Motown thing.
Dude, well, that's my personal, like, I even like on your marketing stuff, like, I think that's like the thing to lean into.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it's not, but I do see where, because I have the same thing. You have to like kind of spell it out. You have to tell.
Well, like the
even
genre,
if it is like,
the idea of genres, that wasn't made up by musicians. That was made up by people who own record stores.
Sure.
So they know where to put your and my record on the shelf. So they know how to sell it. That's that very stark dividing line between making it and selling it.
Yeah.
It's two completely different realms, different skills, all those things.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, the labels are so helpful when you're a new person, new musician, new act, whatever, trying to get your stuff out there. What is it? Oh, it's mainline country. It's traditional country. It's, and in our world, like you said, it's so pervasive. Everybody's country or country adjacent, and it's pretty right down the center.
We were talking about Josh Weathers earlier, and he had the same thing. Like Josh Weathers, growing in high school, he was like a calf roping son of a gun, and had like a similar upbringing to you and stuff. And but nobody ever knew that. And then stylistically, a lot of the music he played just didn't allude to that at all. But I mean, it just shows. If you heard him play some like freaking classic country stuff, like he'd crush it.
Yep.
And so like with where we all have grown up, like you could just walk into a Walmart and you're going to know every country song that's pretty much ever existed just by like living in this area.
Yeah.
And then so on top of that, we would all learn like whatever we were into. Oh, okay, it's Mayer. Oh, it's Hendrix. Oh, it's this, it's that, But anyways, for him specifically, like for the longest time, he was just like, kind of had like I say average Joe. Like he, I think at one point I saw him like wearing like a fedora or something.
Sure.
Like it is just like doing his thing. And then had this soul grooving, bluesy thing. And I remember backstage, I don't remember exactly where it was at, but there was these dudes that had a rope and dummy back there. And so Josh comes like walking by and like it was just so funny because it's like the way he looked in that moment. It's like probably not the guy that you would pick out of a crowd
You
to
wouldn't
just walk
expect
up.
it. Yeah.
And like he walked by and like, I don't know, somehow, they said something to him or whatever. And he just like went over there and like slapped one on there. And,
Yeah.
and it was so funny. They just handed it to him, walked off. And they were like,
What just happened?
which like also who has like I don't know, like a rope and dummy like out in that situation. It was a little bit funny. Like,
Yes.
definitely.
There's a little bit, well, it's a little bit of probably those guys.
Little Pander Express. Which
Probably,
yeah.
You know what's funny is probably those people who were out there with the rope and dummy at the show, they're probably a whole lot less country than Josh.
Yeah.
And they're
at the time.
They're trying to,
Yeah.
they're trying to put a label on.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe
hey,
a little bit.
Look what I can do.
Which
Yeah.
Which now we've reached a point where the cowboy thing is so popular that I kind of can appreciate it now, where if somebody like actually does come from that world, it's like freaking tell people.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Like,
I don't know. I kind of like people
discovering
thinking,
it.
Well, I kind of like people not knowing that about me.
Yeah.
A lot, like I said, a lot of people assume I'm kind of in fact, I was out playing a show and I've got a song on my new record called Feedlot Cowboy. And I played that song and told the story I just kind of told you about the feedlot. And afterwards, the venue owner who's known me for years, he was like, man, I literally have always viewed you as like this.
Just kind of urban city, like,
dude, that's exactly, he said, how did he say it? I've always thought you were urban intellectual.
Like he just called you a yuppie.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I kind of took it as a compliment, you know, but also I thought it was completely funny because I figured most people saw this hick up there trying to sing soul music. You know what I mean? That's the way I assumed I came off, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, man, I thought you were city boy and just kind of like, so I don't know. It's funny. People, I can definitely see why some people, I guess, lay it on if they feel like that's something that they have to tell you. You have to know this about me, right?
Yeah.
But most of the people who, most of the people with an agrarian background that I know, they don't have to prove anything. It's like, I don't know. They've been there, they've done the work. It's like that's not necessarily they don't think that's the cool thing because it's just who they are. Like we were talking about before, one of the big things I have a hard time with is trying to find a way to take my fairly normal and what I view as boring life and find a way to make it cool. But my fans, what I consider my normal boring life, they're like, that's the music business. It's so cool to us.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's just rehearsal. I just wrote a song. I just recorded a record at Yellow Dog. It's just it's what we do. It's not, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To us, it's like, listen, there's people in New York City that, when they see some guy working on a horse, to them, they're like,
that's the most
my
insane,
gosh, that's crazy. He just grabbed that horse's foot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They're just
freaking
out.
Yeah.
But people who grew up around horses are like,
oh, dude, you're preaching to the choir.
He's just doing.
Because that was my first, when I first put out my first record.
Yeah.
It was like, well, what are we gonna do from album artwork and like what? And I was like, I don't know, just take a picture of me working, I guess.
Yeah.
So we get a cool photo of me lighting a cigarette on a horseshoe, which like in hindsight, it's a dope photo.
It's dope
but
as
like,
hell, bro. It's cool.
But like in the context of with which we did it, it just like wasn't that cool. And the photographer was awesome. You know what I mean? So it was like, and then maybe it's just because I was like raised around the social media thing.
Sure.
I didn't have to necessarily make a transition into it. So like the idea of taking your mundane, ordinary daily life, and then just make it what you present.
Yeah.
And like, then I figured out, I'm like, oh, it's almost like people are talking about my music because of what I do. Oh no, he's a horseshoer. Like it's the real shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it was like,
absolutely.
and
I
it
get
gave
that.
more weight to the music, and it was like, oh, huh.
Okay.
So like the best video, the videos that get the most traction for me is like I just like shoe a horse
Right. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
play the music over top of it.
Yeah.
You know? And like for me, that's so mundane. Actually taking the thing that it's like you're slithering out of bed, just like, I don't want to go to work.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing that somebody wants to see.
That's the thing that they're.
Because I guess that's what separates you. Because like some dude in the middle of New York City is like,
right.
What is this?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Exactly.
And so I think every person has an element of that, like bringing out, that kind of goes back to our initial deal of like bringing out the beauty and kind of the mundane.
Mm-hmm.
I've found a lot of photographers and videographers that are able to do that.
For sure. For sure.
And just find these like almost just static shots.
Yeah.
I'm like obsessed with them.
Yeah.
Of like, they'll just find like a cool line or like these like slow zoom videos of like a static shot, but the way they color grade it and stuff is like, it's like this mixture of like that kind of faded. It was almost like the sky would be like this faded blue, but then the tree has this like bright red with the way they color grade it.
Yeah.
And like they're bringing out like stuff. I don't
Capture
know, man.
light, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, God, that's art right there.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
But it's nothing special about it.
Just what they do.
It's like a railroad track with a tree.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like boring.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, and like I said, that's one of the things that I have a hard time with is like, how do I take all this stuff that actually is really cool, but it's just normal for us. You know what I mean? For me, you know, it's funny. We were talking about birth order and how that affects things. A lot of times with middle kids, there's kind of this feeling of like, be quiet and stay out of the way. And so
for
that's
the middle kid.
Oh yeah, brother.
Really?
See, here's that that's that youngest sibling coming out in you again.
You know, the youngest ones just aren't getting nearly enough attention.
See, every young one thinks that. Every youngest one thinks that. Yeah. No, for me, you know, that was kind of the way it was. It was just, you know, don't be a pain and take care of your stuff. And, you know, so for me, it's a lot of times when I'm trying to decide how I'm supposed to portray myself, it's hard because my first instinct is, well, I already played the music. You don't need to see my face. You know, I already made you a record. What do you want to talk to me for? That's kind of my thinking, which is wrong. You know, which goes back to another thing you were talking about. How old are you?
33.
33. Okay. I'm 44. So there's a little bit of like a generational divide there because, you know, I remember, I think I was a sophomore in high school when our school got internet.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's quite a bit of a divide there with social media and internet there for me because number one, that's not something I'm into anyway. And then I remember being raised in a time when it was like people who talked about themselves weren't viewed positively.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
And so now it's like, no, you're supposed to talk about yourself every day. I'm like, what? And video it? And put myself out there? Are you kidding me? I'm supposed to, you know.
Well, okay. I agree with you. Talk about yourself.
Right.
But like if you're I'm trying to help both of us out here.
I'm sure I need a lot more help than you do. So.
No. Well, because I struggle with the same thing. It's funny too, like the idea of a selfie video. You remember how like it wasn't that long ago that just doing a selfie video was considered the goofiest thing ever.
Yeah.
And now it's just total.
Now that's like literally there are entire marketing campaigns now for multi-billion-dollar companies that are selfie videos.
Just change, yeah. So it changes. I was trying to like compartmentalize the idea of like, can you talk about the work you do and not necessarily talk about yourself?
Yeah.
Like talk about what it is and how it's supposed to make someone feel as opposed to just how you did it. Or does that make sense?
No.
So it doesn't help at all. It's still just talking about yourself.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, I have a hard time separating. Like the music is so personal for me. I have a hard time pulling the two apart a lot of times, even though I know I'm wrong. Even though I know it's wrong, I have a hard time separating them. And so, as far as it comes to like trying to get the music out there, for me, my first instinct is, okay, it means I have to talk about me.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm trying to get better at mostly is like, here's the product I make. Not necessarily, I can show you the product I make and I can show you how the product is made. We don't necessarily have to go like dig down deep
Yeah.
about the guy who made it.
And how it might make you feel.
Right. But you know what's crazy is even I say that and that's wrong because I have fans that they just love it when I show myself walking my dog. And I'm like,
yeah, because they do care about the person behind the what.
They do.
I guess yeah, I understand it. Yeah, because you are really just like talking about yourself all the time, which is scary. But like if you it's like the difference between owning a freaking, being the guy that started Home Depot as opposed to like the guy that owns the local hardware store with his name as freaking Jarrod Hardware.
Right.
It's like, to make a living as Jarrod Hardware, you kind of have to talk about Jarrod in the hardware store all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
But if you're Home Depot, it's like you have a team of people that you are talking about Home Depot all the time.
But you're paying people to talk about Home Depot all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to like have people do that all the time.
No.
So
I mean, I think it's amazing that there's people in our business that they love what we do so much that they now love us and they want to help us do it. And to me, I think that is such a huge compliment,
in what in the industry?
I'm just talking about people. Steve's one of them.
Oh gosh, that's what I was wondering if you were.
People just around who are like, listen, I don't really have a bunch of personal, there's not a bunch of personal gain in this for me, but I love what you do, and I want to see you do it more effectively or, in a bigger way, however you want to say it. And those people to me are like angels in this business.
It's crazy.
Because there's a lot of guys like me, like I'm totally content to just make my records. You don't ever have to see my face.
Yeah.
I'll just make records, put them out, and if you want to connect to them, that's fine. But that's not really how the world works anymore,
Yeah, and there's plenty of like people on our end of the creation thing that are doing it just for the results, like for the attention.
Sure.
And so that exists the same as people like in the business.
Yes.
Like whether you're a booking agent, a manager, like I get like a lot of those people want to be side stage at a massive show,
right,
that they helped in a way build.
Sure.
Just as much as the artist wants to be up in front of them, and it's like a thing they can freaking flex a little bit. And there are people in the industry that do it for the love of the game, and the results might come, and they might have the huge success, but they're in it for the love of the game. And then there's some people that are flat out in it, like they're just chasing some freaking
for whatever thing.
Yeah. And so it's super rare to find somebody who's like on the business side that's just like, hey, I want to help wherever this thing goes. Let's talk about it then. But like,
let me just help. Yeah. And I try to have that same, like I try to take what those people say really to heart, because they're not trying to, make money or fame off of me. They just love music like I love music, and they, I'm assuming music affects them the same way it affects me. There's lines that nick them, just like there's been lines that nick me. And so it's about, finding like-minded people who are kind of chasing that same goal,
Dude, let me tell you something that terrifies me.
All right.
I had somebody that I care a lot about recently, and I really value their opinion, tell me, we were talking about, can you have really large, great success in this industry, specifically in music, not being kind of a bit of like a narcissist, over the top, kind of egocentric, selfish person? Okay. Can you? And they were like, I don't believe you can. And it terrified me because I was like, shoot, because I'm not willing to make that compromise. I'm just flat out unwilling.
Yeah, me either.
And I've met a lot of people on some unsuccessful, some super successful, some like in the middle, and it's starting to skew towards the ones that I enjoy spending the most time with and enjoy as people are the ones that aren't as successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that too. You know, there was this study that came out years ago, and I think a lot of people have repeated it in different ways, but something about like the number of billion-dollar CEOs that are actually sociopaths.
Yeah.
Because that's what it takes to become a successful billion-dollar CEO.
Or do you...
And that idea of like...
So whether or not they were changed into it or they were already, that kind of doesn't matter. It's what it takes to get there anyway, either way.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Yeah. And like, well, there's partly the idea that, well, that was the conversation actually, was were these people sociopaths from the start, or were they willing to take on whatever behaviors it took to be successful, which, by the way, is a symptom of a sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a snake eating its own tail. It starts to kind of go back on itself after a while. Like, which is it? You know?
Yeah.
But again, I don't think it's one of those things where you have to say every musician bigger than me is a narcissist.
No.
But at the same time, there are many musicians that I've seen that definitely fit that bill.
Yeah.
There's musicians I know.
Yeah, there's some outliers that are really successful. Dude, there's some really unsuccessful musicians that I think are total douchebags.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
So there's a ton of those.
I know lots of those too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's like the whole idea that like when people talk about like rich people or like assholes or something, I'm like, I know a lot of poor people that are total douchebags.
Dicks. Yes.
Like,
and the money ain't got nothing to do with it. Yeah.
Sure. If they just had money, now they're like, now they can really,
they can really be who they are. Yeah, right.
So there's people who are ultra successful. Like there's guys I've been around that. There's also a perception thing too with the massive success. Like there's guys that might have like big personalities and might be kind of tough to handle and stuff, but they were that way when they were unsuccessful.
Exactly.
And then now it's just kind of magnified.
Yeah. Like, now it's more encouraged.
Turned into a real jerk. It's
they were kind of a jerk. Now they just have the money and fame behind it to be a super jerk.
And then I also empathize with having such a level of success that you just got so many people coming at you all the time.
Yeah.
And you got so much going on.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say, because I do know, I know a handful of billionaires. That's one of the funny things about music is the people that we get to interact with just because we can sling a guitar. It's crazy.
Oh, you can.
You do fine. But like, it's crazy
that's
that
what
people.
That's
what you're shooting for. It's fine.
Yeah. I was really ready for something. No, hey, you're really great. No, you do fine.
Yeah. But you know, I know I know a handful of billionaires, and I would say I know some people on both sides of that coin we were talking about. Some of them you can definitely tell that there are parts of their personality that were incredibly beneficial to getting where they were, you know. And I know a couple billionaires who are just, you wouldn't know.
I know.
Unless someone told you, someone else, because they wouldn't tell you. They're going to keep, you know, there's one in particular I'm thinking of. He just, you know, I know him as Mike, and he's the most successful, richest dude in this little friend group of millionaires and billionaires that I know. And he's like the big dog. Mike's chill. Mike's real quiet. He's always sitting on the edge, listening, watching, observing. You know, he's not the guy in the middle of the room, all eyes on him, putting on a show all the time. He's just chill. And so again, it's one of those things you can't really put a blanket on everybody. But at the same time, I don't know. Like you said, there's those. Is it something I'm willing to trade? And am I willing to turn in to the type of person it would take me to be a mega international superstar, right? And I think most people.
I don't personally believe it takes that.
I don't either.
I don't. So that's
I don't
what
think
I
it
had
does.
a disagreement with my friend.
Yeah.
He thought like you would have to make that compromise. I disagree.
Yeah.
I'm unwilling to make that compromise, but I also disagree.
Right. Well, what I was going to say is, I think it goes down to kind of that goal or mission statement we talked about a little bit ago, having that set before anything happens. Like, Walt Wilkins was amazing when I was making my first record, because one of the things he made me do, he said, I want you to sit down and write a mission statement for this record. I also want you to write a mission statement for like your, how do you say it? Well, just for me, but really like what I'm going to do in my career. Write it down.
Did you write? You wrote it down?
Yeah, he made me write it down.
Okay.
And it's been one of those things where you make your decisions years before it comes up. Like, here's another one. Here's another example. I have fans all the time that, they kind of have this sex, drugs, and rock and roll idea of the music business. And I had a guy one night ask me, man, I bet you've had so many opportunities or whatever,
Yep.
And I kind of ruined his fun, because I told him, I've been married 22 years now. I can't remember how many years I was at the time, but I said, I've been married this long, and I had to decide at the very beginning what I was going to do in those situations. I already had made the decision. We already had a company policy before it came up. And so when it came up, there was no thinking. I just did the company policy, which was, I'm flattered, but I'm going to go to my hotel alone tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, those things don't, let me be clear, that doesn't come up very often with me, because most of the people who know my music
at this point,
I'm a family man. They know, totally. Right? So that those uncomfortable interactions don't really come up that often, but the couple times they have, you just have to know what's going to happen way in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think kind of what we've been talking about with the business and success and all those things, you kind of have to make those decisions in advance.
Yeah, that specific scenario too, it's funny that you would think the bigger you get, the more opportunities that there are, but it's like kind of contrary. It's like when you're like seemingly like unknown,
right?
And it's like it's just wandering around, then you're just like hanging out with everybody and like all that kind of stuff. It's
yeah.
like people would probably be shocked when it looks like backstage at some of these big deals. It's like it's
a bunch of musicians sitting on a couch on their phone.
Yeah, that's exactly.
There's probably no music. Like nobody wants to hear music.
And like the artist like doesn't get off their bus. And like there ain't no. Hey,
turn off the music. Yeah. Turn off the TV. We want to sit in silence. You know, two of the crew guys, they're, two of the crew guys are in line for the shower. Somebody's doing laundry. One guy is meeting up with his like middle school best friend, and they're gonna go get sushi.
So if you're getting into it in that scenario, like you were really looking for it.
Yeah.
Like you're having to organize.
Well, you hound dogged it. You went and found it.
Yeah. And you're like, you're creating the scenario.
Yes.
As opposed to the dude places I play, it's like, you're just like hanging out. And it's like old booze brains, like, she's hot. It's like, no, you moron.
Yeah.
Leave.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Go take a nap in the van right now.
Yeah, and I do find that like verbally saying things or writing things down, because like I have the same policy, and it's like anybody in my band or anything like that, that's like a thing that's like verbally said is like, I'm not playing this game.
Oh, and I tell people who are in my band,
we're not doing this deal. This is not what we do.
Dudes who are married in my band, they've been fired because they weren't. There's guys who have played in my bands, and one of the reasons they got fired is because I found out they were using my show.
Yeah.
To chase tail.
Yeah, I ain't into it.
Nope. I ain't gonna help you do that, buddy.
Yeah, and like I like the idea of like, because there's stuff that exists where it's like what happens on the road stays on the road. Like
no, it doesn't.
Bros are bros. I'm like, dude, freaking screw that. You do something and I know about it, and your wife calls me.
I ain't
I'll
lying
tell her
for
everything.
You.
Like I'm not even doing that for one of my best friends.
Right. Yeah.
Like I'm not.
Yeah.
Like bros are bros. Cause like also my best friends, like most of them aren't like living that kind of life. Like we would probably already be having a conversation about like, hey, this ain't cool. Like we're not like we're clearly on different pages. Like
Yep.
we're not as good of friends as I thought we were. I
Absolutely.
just don't roll like that.
No, man. To me, like
And dude, it's been a hindrance because I've had conversations with industry people
can
where
be.
it's like, like if you're available, it makes your marketing easier.
It sure does. It sure does.
So-
It absolutely does. You know, it's funny because you make those decisions, you kind of set those standards from yourself. And it's interesting to see what happens when you set boundaries on yourself, because there's people around you who don't have the same boundaries. And you just kind of have to realize, hey, man, probably on different paths.
Yeah.
So, like I stopped drinking in 2020. Not really because I had a problem, mostly just because it was one of the things I needed to do to get physically healthy.
Okay.
I've had some physical issues the last few years that are thankfully now kind of, I'm on the much better end. I've got myself a lot more healthy and things like that. But just not being someone who sits around and gets drunk after the shows all the time, that's cost me opportunities. I'm sure of it, because I'm not one of the guys who sits around and let's have another shot and let's get silly and whatever, it's just not.
Gosh, isn't it weird
really
too
what I
that
do.
like it's fun? Doesn't it kind of suck?
I mean, I don't miss it one bit.
Really?
It's like the ocean and mud puddle thing, man. Once you see the ocean, it's like, I don't miss the mud puddle. Like, man, I go home to this amazing woman and these 3 amazing kids, and I wake up not feeling like 9 shades of trampled dog shit.
Yeah. So I don't.
Right?
I'm definitely not into like getting hammered thing. That's
Right.
not something
Okay,
I
yeah.
enjoy. But the social, I don't know. I like hanging.
The social aspect of it, I do miss that.
Yeah.
Yes. The
Because
social
I
interaction.
personally don't love the idea that it has to revolve around alcohol.
Right.
I don't really like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then even the idea of somebody like, let's do shots. And if somebody's like, no, being like, come on. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Fine.
Yeah.
Don't care. Hang out. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to like make you feel bad.
Well, and I have to be honest, it's not even like sobriety. Because I smoke Snoop Dogg under the table.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But that's a whole different, I think that's a whole different vibe. But
Oh, see, for me, it's actually a little bit more sobriety.
really?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
actually less like what it is. That's like actually personally why I don't really like weed that much.
Okay.
Is because it takes me out of my, like, I like being like, I guess having all my faculties.
See, the reason I like weed is because it takes me out of it.
Yeah.
Because my natural state
Is that why you liked alcohol?
No.
Okay.
I never really enjoyed alcohol ever. Even when I was in high school, like I had friends who are always trying to sneak this or that, and it was just never really that interested in it. I also, though, like when I was a kid, was taking moonshine as cough medicine. So alcohol was not like this cool, fun thing. Like I'd had experience with it since I was a kid, and like, oh, it's just this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there wasn't much newness or funness, Even when I was younger, not married, and I had opportunities to do all those things, just I don't know. Like I never was really interested in that. You know? For me, the thing that and kids, if you're listening to this, don't do drugs.
Direct into the camera.
Don't do it.
I like it.
But for me, one of the big things is I used to be super withdrawn on stage. So my much of my musical background is in church. So you're supposed to be up there. You need to be playing your ass off. You need to be singing your ass off, but don't make a spectacle of yourself.
Which I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
It makes total sense to me. I get it.
Stick them in the back of the room where nobody can see them.
That'd be the more logical
Why
thing,
aren't they at
wouldn't
the
it?
front on stage?
That'd be the more logical thing. But so most of my music was in that setting of like, come up here and be excellent, but don't be like this, you know? And so unfortunately for me, it kind of went the other way. And the first few times I got up on stage to play my songs, I might as well have been a cardboard cutout. Like there was no interaction. And I had a show years ago at the Golden Light, and it was like we had an opener and an acoustic opener, and it was the first time I sold the Golden Light out, and there was like 30 people standing on the sidewalk waiting to get in, and I've never really had like a panic attack or whatever. I don't get super nervous when it comes to music, but that was one of the first times when I was sitting there thinking, I have to go up and stand in front of these people. They're here to they were there to see
So
me
funny.
specifically.
Dude, I am the exact opposite.
Mm.
If there's not many people,
Mm.
I'm like embarrassed.
Oh, really?
I get way more nervous.
Dude, when
If
there's
it's like happening, I'm like, yeah.
okay, well,
Let's
makes sense.
go.
No, I like if there's 5 people in there, to me, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna sing for these 5 people.
I had to learn it,
Yeah.
like learn to appreciate
Yeah.
that part of it.
Yeah. For me, it's so much easier. There are 5 people. Every person is going to get asked, what song do you want to hear next? What about you? Is there a song you've been waiting on?
Yeah.
Right?
Which
And-
is super disarming. Like that's a great way of doing it. I had to learn that one.
Yeah.
Like I had to learn like how to like, because there's a distance and it's like between you and a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And even with a big crowd, you have to learn how to make that even a little bit personal in
Right.
my experience anyway.
Right.
So you kind of have a different type of rope-a-dope.
Yeah.
I keep finger gunning too.
I like
I
it.
don't know why
It's
I'm
all right.
finger
It's
gunning.
fine.
I don't do that on stage at all. But
I think you should incorporate it.
here,
Need a few more.
I just probably should. It's probably why I haven't had more success.
You need in the middle of Desperado, when you do that song, and then go right back to playing it.
Desperado.
That's right, baby.
So, but there's a distance that you have to like kind of pull people in, even if
Sure.
they're right there and it's packed.
Sure.
There's like a thing that they have. In the same way with like an empty room, because they're kind of sitting there like it's a little clunky. Like, does he take himself too serious? There's nobody here. Why is there nobody here? Am I an idiot?
Mm.
Why did I come?
Mm.
Like I feel like they're kind of having all
See,
of those questions.
That's the question, or that's the thoughts that you think they're having.
Oh yeah.
And
And they're really like just hyped to be there.
and they're just like, oh my God, here. Oh God, he's on stage. Oh my God, there he is.
Yeah.
That's what they're thinking.
Sure.
And then you start like, oh my God, he's playing the song. Oh my God. That's what they're thinking.
Well, I usually try to address it like in the sense of like, ain't a lot of people here, but like I freaking am so stoked that y'all are.
Yeah.
Like this is badass.
Yep.
Like thanks for making the effort.
Yeah. It's funny because it used to be at the very beginning, weed I definitely used it as a crutch to get outside of my own head. Now it's funny. I smoke a lot less than I used to, and I smoke a lot less around the show than I used to. Because now I'm kind of to that point where it's like I said, it's a snake eating its own tail. It's kind of moved back to that thing where it's like, I want to be there. That's where I want to be. And now I've worked past all the my own insecurities about promoting or displaying myself, however you want to say it, on stage. I know that those people are there to see me, and I take that as that's a privilege. That's an honor. I want to be a good steward now. I want to be a good steward now of that privilege. Like, one thing with music for me that I can never really forget about is the privilege that it is to get to play music. Because like we were talking about, before I started playing my own songs, my options were manual labor, ag labor, and playing somebody else's songs in a church, right? And I want to be so respectful of people most of those people, say a Friday night show. How many of those people got up at 6 to go to work? They put in a full day, dealt with a boss, some coworkers, customers, whatever. Probably hauled ass home, took a shower, probably grabbed a bite at a drive-thru on the way just to try to make it there on time. And now they've spent however many dollars to get there in the room. They're sitting in a chair and they can barely contain themselves. They're like, oh my gosh, here he comes, right? I don't want to be the schmuck who's like, whatever, To me, like, I was one of those people a long damn time. You know what I mean? And the reality of it is like,
You were like the whatever.
no.
Oh, okay,
I was
okay.
one of the people who worked all day.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and I try to keep that mindset all the time in the shows. Like the other day, we were on our way somewhere, and we were going through downtown Dallas, and there was this crew that was taking the Christmas lights down, and they were on these 30-foot extension ladders, and they had a guy at the bottom holding the ladder, and they had a couple 2x4s like propped up on the ground to a rung on the ladder, and the top of the ladder was resting on like a tree that was moving every time the wind blew. And there's some dude up there. There was guys and gals up there. They were pulling these Christmas lights out of this tree, right? And I'm on my way to a show, and I'm at a stoplight, and these people are directly in front of me. And for me, those are the things I kind of try to remember. It's like, I get down on myself. I get frustrated that I'm not bigger or more famous or have more streams, all the things that you can beat yourself up over. And then I remember, yeah, but someone else had to work their ass off all day today to come see your show.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%, dude. Perspective
So,
is, yeah.
Honestly, that was one of the biggest things, getting outside of my own head and realizing, man, I'm really here for these people, you know, and all the ugly things I think about myself, they're probably not thinking any of those things, you know. I told someone one time, they asked me, like, you know, when you're up there, like just ripping a big old solo, like what's going through your head? And what's going through my head is, don't screw this up, don't screw this up, don't screw this up. Partly, but then also, it doesn't really matter what I do up there. I'm thinking, oh man, I could do better. This could be better. Wonder if I could rewrite this solo. I could play this faster. I could throw in a few more 30-second notes. Just squeeze a few more notes into this measure.
Just a few more 30 seconds.
Yeah, just a few more. And like, because in my brain, I'm like, it's these people know. They're watching me. They know that I'm just. Because I feel it's funny because I tell people all the time, people who get, you know, some people gush after the show, and it gets a little. I almost want to be like, hey man, stop. I'm normal. I'm a normal person, right? Like, I need you to stop gushing over me so that you and I can actually have a real connection.
Yeah.
Because if you've got you've got this crazy built up idea of, oh, he's so amazing, he's so special.
Well, I worry at times that they think I need that. That's why they're doing it.
Yeah, I think some people think that.
They think that's what's gonna like maybe make me feel good, which like because coming from, and it does to a degree, but then it gets to a point where it's like, oh no, you don't have to do that.
Right.
Like, I'm happy asking about your life.
Yeah.
But it's like they don't know that I would be okay with that.
Well, and a lot of people, that's the only interaction they have with a quote unquote celebrity or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big part of this job, is that idea of the celebrity of it all, of like who's more or less famous, those type of things, right?
Well, it'll change the dynamic of a room.
It changes the entire dynamics of a room.
Like,
yeah,
because that's a funny one. Because like,
yeah,
you could think you maybe are the most freaking special one in the room, and then somebody walks in that just dwarfs you,
right?
And it just switches that on its head immediately, and then it all starts to become laughable.
That's the thing.
It's like, this is all ridiculous.
It's all silly.
Yes.
Celebrity is one of the silliest things that I've ever encountered, because, and the reason I feel that way is because there's people that I viewed, when we started the conversation, we talk about people like, oh, they're special. There must be something, they've got something that nobody else has. And I definitely felt that way before.
Yeah, me too.
I fell into that. Well, then I got to know these people like on a very personal level. Like, we work together, we have success together, we have some small failures together, and then you realize celebrity is so stupid. These are just regular people. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the it factor around that kind of aura around them is a little bit manufactured by everybody else around them.
Yeah, and I think it's hilarious because especially like in festivals and stuff, because the celebrity thing is not, it's relative. There was a time I was walking down the corridor at Music Fest, and I was with 3 or 4 other artists, and we were all kind of like, I think we were going to that the grand ballroom at the farther end of the hotel, and so we were all just kind of walking together, you know, chit chatting and stuff, and it was very funny because a couple times in that little short walk, it happened to me one time where the four of us, and I would view all three of these guys as bigger than me, I guess. The four of us were walking down the corridor, and a fan's like, "Oh my God, Zac Wilkerson," which I think is just hilarious. I think that's really funny.
I do too.
I'm like, if you knew Zac Wilkerson, you wouldn't be feeling that way.
He's good at geology.
Yeah, great at geology. But what's funny is like those other three guys, they just kind of, at first they stood there and then they kept walking. They knew I would catch up. But they were like, all right, we're going to let him have his moment with his fan, you know? And I talked to my fan and it was fine. It was cool, you know, all that stuff. And then we got back to the group. And then further down we went, it happened to another of those guys. And so me and the other two, we
kept walking.
He'll catch up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, it's so relative. And when you realize that celebrity is this thing, it's a shared myth. It goes back to that whole idea of like, these people think this about us or about them or whoever you want to say it. It's just such a funny thing. And because the people who are actually celebrities, they're like, I'm just a musician.
Yeah.
I'm just a songwriter.
I just can't really treat people different.
Yeah. And I think that happens because we got to go through the whole process.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people on the other side of it, they get to go through the whole process of where they see.
And that also can have an adverse effect where it's like the hot girl thing where you think because she's the hot girl, she got hit on all the time and she gets all these compliments.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, contraire. Everybody thinks that.
She's unattainable.
Well, yeah, and everybody thinks she's getting accolades all the time, so she gets none. And she's unapproachable.
Yes.
And so she doesn't get any compliments.
Yes.
And nobody says anything to her. Nobody talks to her.
That's so
it's
true.
actually the opposite of what you think.
Yes.
So there's some people that like maybe haven't been around like a big like celebrity before, and I've seen people get kind of cold towards them, like kind of trying to act too cool. Where it's like the celebrity,
aloof, yeah.
like how few people might walk up to like I've done. You talk about somebody with like the it factor. I've done some work with Parker now.
Okay, yeah.
And Parker's like, you stand next to him and like, you just want to pull your shoulders back a little more. You know what I mean? You're just like, hell yeah, we got this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Coolness by proximity.
Dude, it's just, he's one of those people that has that freaking thing. And what was I about to say? What was I talking about? Somebody like kind of giving you a hard time. So he's like a really good looking dude and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like how few people would probably just go up to him and just be like, hey dude, that like on your first record, that like third song on the album list, like that song rips. Like I really like that. I like what you did on the second verse of that song.
Yeah.
He writes all of his own stuff. Like he does it. Like, he's in there. He's doing the thing.
Sure.
And like how but you might think he might be getting all that attention all the time, but it's typically for like other BS of just celebrity.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not very frequent that you'd get somebody like that and somebody just comes up and they're like, hey man, I really like the work that you did on like this like B-side track or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, thanks.
Right.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Not just like, oh my gosh, like all the bullshit, you know?
Gushing.
And so sometimes people even like, you know, maybe give you the cold shoulder because like they think you're getting all this attention all the time. Then they're just rude to you.
Yeah. I've noticed that. I've had that definitely where people thought because I was a celebrity, they thought I was going to act a certain way.
Yeah.
And they're very surprised when.
Yeah. It's like you almost have to prove. It's like you're like trying to like, no, you can be nice to me. I'm going to be nice to you.
Yeah.
But they're coming out.
I'll tell you, like one of the, like I hear fans say all the time, oh my gosh, you're just so nice. I'm like, you thought I wasn't?
Yeah.
You sounded really surprised when you said that. Does that mean you thought I wasn't nice before this?
Do you ever think it might be them thinking about what would I be like if I had this attention?
I think so. It goes back to that whole celebrities are special thing. They honestly believe, oh, if if I could do that, I know that I would, whatever.
I would be a total asshole.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm an asshole anyway. So
yeah.
but
Y'all should hear Zach off the camera.
Listen, this
Holy
guy.
cow. This guy. Hey, that's the great thing about the long form stuff. You can't hide it.
You can't hide it.
For an hour and a half,
comes
can't
out.
hide it.
Yeah.
Can't
And
hide it.
I do like that about long form. I think that's one of the coolest things that's happened in media is because you actually get to hear these people talk for a long time.
Yeah, and pretty much anybody agreeing to do it, it's almost like on the agreement, you're like, oh, okay, they're real.
Yeah.
Because like anybody who's not wouldn't agree to do it.
Yeah. What's interesting, like I've actually become fans of people because I heard them talk before I listened to their music. And honestly, dude, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for depth in people. I'm looking for realness. I'm looking for connection. I've had so many, what's the word? Like tragedies, harrowing, like I've had so much like heavy, hard stuff. I'm just not really into, I don't know. I'm not into putting on a facade. You're gonna have a really hard time selling me anything. I want to find out, what's in your heart, what's in your brain, what are the things you think about, like what keeps you up at night, what do you worry about, what do you think is cool, what do you what makes you excited, what topic could I ask you about and you start squirming in your seat because you're so excited to talk about it. That's the things that I dig, because there's a lot of superficial stuff with selling music that I have a hard time with. I have a hard time being superficial. And so I'm like, well, how do I do this, but do it in a real kind of authentic way?
Yeah.
I want to show myself the best way I can. I still have to sell it, but I'm not going to lie to you. I refuse to lie to you. You know what I mean? That's why I think long form is so fantastic.
Me too.
You get to hear thoughts, you get to hear prejudices, all those things. I love it. Yeah.
Uncomfortabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Oh man, this is fun. I love hanging out with, I don't know, I love hanging out with people I think are maybe chasing the same thing I am.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We'll see though. Cause like when the cameras go off,
Yeah. We might fist fight later.
I can't compete with those feedlot cowboys, dude. They'll whoop my ass.
Yeah, well, I'm not one anymore. I'm a van driver now.
I can't compete with anybody really. Yeah, that's our go-to. Yeah, I have a very punchable face.
Oh, really?
We'll experience it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's
funny. I have very punchable fists. That's what I find.
This might be perfect.
This is a match made in heaven.
This is a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
I got a punchable mouth too. I get to talking too much. Is that the youngest child?
Oh, that's what it is. There it is. Yeah,
for sure. Well, cool, man. You're playing a bunch of spring, aren't you?
Yeah. I've been saying no to a lot of stuff.
Good.
And so for the last 2 years, I basically only do what I want. And if there's any little bitty part of me that doesn't want to do it, I just don't do it.
Do you do the bands in town thing?
Yeah, we have a band in town.
Scheduling shows.
Yeah.
What's the typical way that you're sending out info about shows or new releases?
I know Bands in Town sends out little reminders and stuff. One thing I've recently I don't know if they just started it or if they just allowed me to be part of it, but Spotify's now doing kind of the show announcement thing, the local show thing.
Yeah,
and
so they got to
doing that.
Literally go to the profile page and click follow on Spotify.
Yeah, and then you'll get notified next time I'm in the area. And that's actually we've had a few people who have told us that's working well for them.
Yep.
They don't necessarily have to try to keep up with my calendar, but I'll show up on the Spotify. So
exactly.
Yeah,
that and Bands in Town. And then do you have an email list on your website?
I do, and I've been horrible about using it. I probably need to use it.
Yeah. Because I'm like always just trying to consider ways of like, how do we just get to the, like, even people that follow you on all the different social media, you can still post stuff and they won't see it.
Yeah, it's weird.
So it's like, how do you just get to the goods while keeping it like, you don't have to freaking check up on me every 2 months. It's like, if something's happening, I'll shoot you an email.
Sure.
You
Yeah, email is something I definitely should be taking more advantage of. I've thought about using that kind of like I haven't done it yet. I've thought about kind of using it as as a fan club.
Email?
Yeah. Put something in the email that only people who are on the list can get.
I send physical mail.
Really?
Snail mail.
That's beautiful.
Postcards and
Handwritten to all the
handwritten,
150,000 followers.
chiseled in stone. So
I would just do pen and paper, but you got to do what you got to do.
Shipping costs are through the roof, dude. It's insane. And Micah, I told you he does most of the editing.
Yeah.
What I meant was
It's tough going back and fixing a chisel.
he's actually the one
That's
doing the chiseling.
we use a Dremel. You got Milwaukee
Dremel.
over there?
Yeah, no, he does it by hand, but
Okay.
poor hands. Have you seen his? You saw his hands when he came in.
Yeah. Looks like a couple glazed hams, just huge, giant.
They are strong.
They look like strong hands.
It's not where I thought you were going with it, but chiseled. Micah with his chiseled ham hands. Oh, cool. All right. Well, see y'all. Thanks for listening. Zac Wilkerson.
Thanks, y'all.